As we begin the new season of the ARLA Elite Series presented by Smash Beer, you can't help but notice how different the field looks, as is the case almost every year. That's right, we got a demonstration of the abilities of the new faces we have on the grid this year in the rookie shootout last night. Jim Hayes took the checkered flag in a dominant fashion, and aside from a silly pileup on the first lap, I was overall rather pleased with the competence of most of the drivers in this year's rookie class. But silly season wasn't limited to just the new drivers entering the series. Several of the more established drivers have found themselves in new rides. Just to name a few of many examples, Alex Carson has taken over the iconic number 2 Smash Beer car from the retiring Andy Pearson. Taylor Brillin is in the 64 at M&J Racing, an equally famous car. Michael Madrigal, who was at M&J in the 64, has now moved over to the flagship high car for Math Motors. Again, this is just a few of many roster changes that we've had over the offseason, and we will show you more of them as the night goes on. In other news, this weekend marks the first time since 2002 that the USA International Speedway has been on the ARLA Elite Series schedule, and this is the first time that the season opener has been at this track. Joseph Howard leads the field to the green flag, and he picks up right where TDR left off after Jim Hayes won the rookie shootout with a fantastic start over Bobby Porteau in the 74. Behind Howard, Leslie Riggs in the 50 car tries to get around Porteau and her teammate Taylor Brillin. Andre Canassa, after finishing 5th in the rookie shootout, has her engine let go right after the green flag waves, and the Team Bird teammates Cletus McGuffey and Derek Dunning smack the wall coming off of turn number 4. McGuffey brought that Stelling Country Draft money over to Team Bird this season, and it has clearly not done that team any good, aside from giving them the ability to terrorize the field with a second car this year. AJ Young is making his first start for M&J Racing tonight, as you see Barton Sandy in the 92 on the apron with an engine failure on lap 3. So how is AJ Young doing now that he has a good car for once? Well, he's in 27th place, but hey, he's at least beating Aaron Singer in that one car for Wesley Family Racing. Joseph Howard gets by the Team Bird teammates rather easily, but they create a roadblock for second place Bobby Porteau. Fernando's Chicken is re-signed to that 17 team, and Howard is carrying their colors tonight. Loose Industrial Lighting has also re-signed with that team. Bobby Porteau in second place is trying to hold off Leslie Riggs in the 50. Porteau, the 2010 Series champion, is picking up right where he left off with that Mitchell & Sons team. He's showing a lot of speed in a car that doesn't have a whole lot of outside funding. Harry Essenola in the 45 is trying to mount a charge on Taylor Brillin in the 64 in the early laps. That is Lucas Sweeney in the 8 car with the Griesberger sponsorship running in 6th place. Enola is making his first start for Peter Irving Gray Sports. Peter Irving Gray bought the assets to Riggs Motorsports after it was announced that that team would be merging with M&J for this season. Ellie Riggs in the 19 is going 3 wide with John Hawks and Seja Dejal for the 12th spot. Ellie Riggs is driving for her own team this season, although technically she is the owner of that team in name only, as her boyfriend Chris Johans has been doing most of the work. Ellie Riggs has some new branding on that 19 car this season. Bunny's Cosmetics has jumped on board with her. Dan Leckleiter in the 10L, the hometown hero. One of the hometown heroes tonight. His brother Robert Leckleiter is also from the Lakeland area. Dan Leckleiter is currently running in 23rd place. Not a great start, but hopefully he can pick it up. Dan Leckleiter previously raced in the TM Master Cup Series with the surname Plezel in honor of his grandfather. Now here's a guy that's generated some headlines over this offseason, Zachary Zins in the 99 car. After the Apocalypse Survival Special, Zins drove his 99 car right down the highway. He crashed the car, scurried off, and he was never heard from again until just this weekend. When he pulled into the garage, he looked like he hadn't shaved or even bathed in about 3 months. Zins is certainly the interesting character, but he's a competent driver. He currently runs in 27th place. Here is J.W. Lester in the 5-0 car, the second car for Peter Irving Gray Sports, doing battle with Todd Stater in the 422, the newly christened 422 for Green Racing. Stater will be sharing that 422 in a dual championship run with Casey Campbell. J.W. Lester is battling him for the 10th position at the moment, and John Hawks in the 114 for MT Motorsports is looking to join the fight as well, as you see Zachary Zins in the 99 has blown up. He is out of the race in the opening laps. Cletus McGuffey in the 54 tries once again to knock the wall down coming out of turn number 4. He is several laps down at this point, along with his teammate Derek Dudding, and he holds up the 114 of Hawks, J.W. Lester and Todd Stater. Looking off the roof cam of Harry Enola in the 45, he has inched closer and closer to the battle between Leslie Riggs and Bobby Porteau, and I believe that red car off in the distance is either Joseph Howard or A.J. Young. It's gotta be Howard. He's actually passing people. And you probably just noticed that Enola had to check up for Cletus McGuffey, who knocked down the wall in turn 4 again, and you just saw Derek Dudding in the 68 do the same thing off at turn 2. But Enola made that ground back up, and he is under the 50 for the 3rd position, as Bobby Porteau in the 74, just ahead of him, struggles with the lapped cars of Dan Lechlater and Richard Scott. Joseph Howard in the 17 still retains a commanding margin over the rest of the field. He just put Kelly Posadas a lap down, and now he's looking to work on ASCC regular Joe Olenek in the 33 for George Martin Racing. That's a rather small team. Wow, Howard just bobbled onto the apron. Derek Dudding in the 68 bounces off the wall and clips Lenore Scurry. Seiju Dejau in the 39 has a ton of damage on that front end. Scurry bounces back onto the track. She tries to get it going, but then she gets hit by Cletus McGuffey. There's no caution for some reason. And now Lenore Scurry and Cletus McGuffey get going. Seiju Dejau has a ton of damage. He is smoking. The 39 car is done. Well, that's just typical bad luck for Kurt Walker Motorsports. And Lenore Scurry in her first start for Motor Assault Racing has her race ruined as well by the Team Bird Tag Team of Death. Philip Borland, making his first start for Math Motors in the E-car, has just gone a lap down to Joseph Howard. Borland is currently running in 15th, and that just goes to show you how strong the lead cars are tonight. There are only 14 cars remaining on the lead lap, and we are barely 30 laps in. Borland will be competing for the Tornado Alley Trophy for Math Motors, and you just saw Jack Dempsey in the 41 car coming out of the pits. He had a mechanical problem of some kind, and he is now off the lead lap. Allie Riggs in the 19 holds up Joseph Howard, allowing Bobby Porteau the opportunity to move around the 17 car for the lead, and Allie Riggs is just going to let the 74 by. This is now going to leave us with 13 cars on the lead lap. I can't say I'm surprised by Allie Riggs' lack of courtesy towards leaders. Joseph Howard has got to be fuming behind the wheel of that 17 right now. Lev Azarov in the 82 for Roos Autosport gets pushed up into the wall by Derek Dudding off of turn number 4. This will be the first caution of the night. Coming on lap number 38, Lev Azarov was in 21st place at the time. He was running a lap down. The Roos Autosport bunch is not doing terribly well at the moment, and this cannot help their cause. Bobby Porteau is the leader on the restart. Leslie Riggs is second. Joseph Howard is back to third. The entire field pitted under this caution. Todd Stater restarted as the last car on the lead lap, and now we've got some lapped cars trying to make up some ground. Zach Webster in the 23 being very aggressive and getting very close to Porteau. The caution flag is out once again. Derek Dudding pushes up into Taylor Brillin and takes his own teammate Cletus McGuffey into the wall as well. Aaron Singer in the 1 got caught up in that and spun around. The 68 is heavily damaged. Derek Dudding is going to go out of the race. Bobby Porteau continues to lead. Joseph Howard made his way back up to second in that very brief green flag run, although Leslie Riggs in the 50 is all over his back bumper. Porteau leads by about 3 car lengths heading off into turn number 3, but Joseph Howard gets an excellent entry into the corner. He reels in the 74 as Leslie Riggs struggles with the lapped cars of Dan Lechlater and Philip Borland. Porteau and Howard are really starting to get away from the field now. These could very well be the 2 strongest cars of the night as Lucas Sweeney blows up in the 8. Sweeney is out of the race at the halfway point. Griesberger dissolved their team in the offseason to move over to Pearson Sweeney Motorsports and this 8 car. This isn't a great start to the season for them. Joseph Howard makes a move on Bobby Porteau to reclaim the lead. Leslie Riggs has broken away from the lap traffic and is trying to catch these two. Harry Essenola is in 4th place. He has also broken away from the lap traffic as Joseph Howard almost smashes into the back of Cletus McGuffey. McGuffey has a problem of some kind. Riding on board with the 17, McGuffey suddenly comes to a stop in front of him, forcing Howard to take evasive action. I think everybody behind Howard had to check up as well, otherwise they would have been all over him. Edwin Schwartzlowski in the 707 for his new team Racers with Disabilities has been quietly running in the top 10 all night. Schwartzlowski is currently running in 5th. His closest competitor is Todd Stater in the 422. That 707 is another one of these shared championship cars. Schwartzlowski will be splitting this car with Kiriki Hitsuno this season. Schwartzlowski tries to put Aaron Singer a lap down and sideswipes the 1 car coming into turn number 1, but I don't think that's brought Todd Stater any closer. Schwartzlowski, of course, is the first amputee to have won a race in ARLA competition. He is missing his right arm, and as the team name suggests, Schwartzlowski started Racers with Disabilities to promote talented drivers who suffer from debilitating ailments. And now we have a look at Trey Ashby in the 12, who almost put Philip Borland into the inside wall. He's clearly not very happy with Borland holding him up. Trey Ashby is currently running in 7th place for Brinson Engineering. That team entered a few races with Ashby last season, and they were very fast, so they seem to have picked right up where they left off. I think a win for this team is right around the corner, and if they had won a race last season, I wouldn't have been surprised then. Bobby Porteau has cut his right front tire, and he has to come into the pits on lap number 67 from the 2nd spot. This is exactly the kind of thing that plagued Mitchell & Sons last season. I think they could have been a championship contender had they not suffered from various crashes and mechanical failures. And now Porteau is back out on the track. He is a couple laps down and well out of contention for this win. Tough break for Porteau and the 74 team. Zach Webster is currently in 7th place, trying to hold off Taylor Brillin, who is missing the front end on that 64 car. I'm glad to see Webster back in the series with a relatively stable ride. He was supposed to run in 2012, but funding dried up, and he sat out for the entire season until Rockford rolled around. I thought it was kind of odd that he couldn't get anything together for 2012. Supercharged Energy has always been pretty loyal to Webster. You'd think their support would have been enough for him. Allie Riggs has made her way back onto the lead lap. She is currently 9th behind the battle between Zach Webster and Taylor Brillin. And now in this position, she would be a little bit more justified in blocking the hell out of people. Joseph Howard is trying to break away from the field, but Leslie Riggs in the 50 is chasing him down. Leslie Riggs, of course, is now driving for M&J Racing after that team merged with Riggs Motorsports over the offseason. Well, those two teams were pretty much operating as one organization anyway. They just have 4 cars now instead of 10. 2012 was quite horrendous for both their morale and their pocketbooks, and I can only point to the hiring of A.J. Young as evidence of that, as Edwin Schwartzlowski turns Lenore Scurry into the wall right in the middle of the front stretch. Well, I'm not sure what to make of that. Scurry was several laps down, but Schwartzlowski could have easily just gotten around her. He's not exactly doing that top 5 run of his any good by trying to wreck other cars. As the field is coming around trying to line up behind the pace car, watch Lev Azarov in the 82. He just smashes into the back of the 50 of Leslie Riggs. Riggs, of course, was running in 2nd place, and now she's got heavy damage on the rear of that car. I have no way to reasonably explain this. Was Azarov texting in there? There is no way that he couldn't have seen the 50 car coming. Well, the officials promptly asked him to meet with race control after the race, and I can't even think of disagreeing with that. Joseph Howard continues to lead after the restart. Bobby Porteau, remember, is a couple laps down. Leslie Riggs is still in second. She got her spot back and elected not to pit to get that repaired. As we get towards the final laps of this race, track position is more important than anything else, so she's going to tough it out. Todd Stater is up to fourth. He is behind Harry S. Enola in the 45. Stater is doing a great job for Edelweiss Greenhouses in their return to motorsports. Edelweiss was very loyal to Stater when they sponsored him around 2009 when he drove for Michael White Racing, and now they will be on this 422 car whenever he is in it. Zach Webster takes advantage of this restart to try to pick up some positions. He is, I believe, trying to fight for the 6th position, and he's got that over Edwin Schwartzlowski right now. Allie Riggs in the 19 is up to 5th place, and Taylor Brillen in the 64 is still glued to the back bumper of that 23, just like she was earlier in this race. Brillen will be driving the iconic M&J 64 car for this season, and she's got a new sponsor on board that car, Little Bits Chocolate Candies. Allie Riggs, after a lackluster start to this race, is up to 5th. If this race is any indication, moving over to her own team might not necessarily be career suicide for Allie Riggs, but then again, this is only the first race of the season, so we'll just have to see what happens. Jack Dempsey in the 41 is doing his best to interfere with 3rd place Harry S. Enola. Dempsey is off the lead lap. He's on fresher tires than the 45, I believe. Sheriff J.W. Lester of Mississippi is currently in 8th place in the 5-0 car for Peter Irving Gray Sports. Lester has only 2 starts in the series, the Mini Indy 500 and the Rockford 200 last year. He got top 5 finishes in both. Hometown hero Dan Leckwiter is still running a lap down, but at least he's up to 12th, so that's a respectable top 15 run he's got going. Dan Leckwiter will be sharing this 10L car with Lucas Flint in a shared championship bid as Cletus McGuffey smacks the wall off of turn 4 and slides all the way down to the inside wall, but somehow he kept that car together. He's been struggling with that car all night long. He is up to 23rd though, so he's gained a lot more positions than we thought he would, as Joseph Howard takes the win in the first race of the season and continues Tom Delgado Racing's winning streak in this first race weekend. This is Howard's 3rd win in the ARLA Elite Series and the 3rd year in a row in which he's grabbed a win in the opening weekend. Howard scores 116 points. He grabs the bonuses from leading a lap, leading the most laps, and winning the pole. The hard charger bonus of 3 points goes to 10th place Zach Webster, who qualified in 26th place, so he gained more positions than any other driver. Bobby Porteau ended up in 14th, and he grabbed a bonus point for leading a lap. Lev Azarov finished in 15th place, but I think we can expect a penalty after he smashed into the back of Leslie Riggs under caution. Aaron Cruz did a good job leading a lap tonight, but he struggled with that car for the rest of the night and finished 14 laps down. Cletus McGuffey, as you probably just noticed, finished behind Lenore Scurry, even though she retired and McGuffey didn't, but if there were just 2 more laps, McGuffey would have passed Scurry for 22nd. We now move on to round number 2, where Kevin Monroe has taken the pole and leads the field to the green flag. Libby Bell in the 24 is on his outside, and on the outside of row number 2 is defending series champion Rick Tyler in the 16 car for Power Steering Incorporated. New colors on that 16 car this season. Monroe jumps out to the lead, Libby Bell second, Tyler third. Coming to the end of the first lap, the yellow flag is already out as Rachel Rainsford gets into the back of Tanner Clayson in the 79, coming off of turn number 2, and sends Clayson into the wall. That 79 car is done for the night on lap number 1. I expected better than this from Rachel Rainsford, and now we see the entirety of Tanner Clayson's race from Rainsford's roof cam, and she just gets into the back of him coming off of turn 2. No need to be that aggressive this early, and you see a bit of contact ahead of her between Makoto Yamada and Zach Gott in the 7, so those guys are being very aggressive as well. The entire field pitted under this caution, and Kevin Monroe has blown up after retaining the lead in the race off of pit road. So it looks like M&J Racing's engine woes have continued. AJ Young dropped out of round 1 with a piston failure, although Leslie Riggs and Taylor Brillin did get into the top 10 in the last race. This leaves the restart in the hands of Michael Madrigal, who gets a great start over Bixby Foote in the flagship Pi car for Math Motors. He's making his first start with that team, and he's got a little bit of support from M&J Racing behind him. That's right, M&J Racing is going to be supplying engines to Math Motors this season, although after we just saw Kevin Monroe blow up, I don't know how confident that team is going to be in those engines. And now Bixby Foote is all over the back of the Pi car, and I think he may have given Madrigal a bit of a shove coming off of turn 2. Madrigal is doing a hell of a job defending the position at the moment, and coming back to the yellow flag, he will retain the lead. And here is why we are under caution. Again, Jim Hayes gets into the back of Herbie Finkelberg coming off of turn 2 and dumps him into the inside wall. This is the exact same sort of incident that we saw between Rachel Rainsford and Tanner Clayson, but the difference here is that Finkelberg will continue on. But we just scolded Rachel Rainsford for being too aggressive too early on, and I think we can say the same about Jim Hayes here. The entire field pitted again, and Bixby Foote leads on the restart. You just saw Ashley Tucker get around Megan Driver for the second position. That was some good pit strategy by the 40 team to get Megan Driver up there in just her second career start, but she just couldn't stay there. The caution is out once again as Benji Flynn gets into the back of Rick Tyler and sends him into the wall. Makoto Yamada in the 22 is sent around as well. And there was another small pile of cars towards the inside involving Nick Azure in the 46 car, among others. He just got clipped and sent careening into the 71 of Rachel Rainsford. Nick Howard in the 859, the Duck Roll development team, got a small piece of that as well. Well, this race is certainly shaping up to be the typical second round shenanigans, even though the field isn't being seeded like they normally would in the second round. Coming back to the caution, Lucy Barnton in the 84 for Eichelt's Atlantic Racing has to pit with a mechanical problem of some kind, and as she's leaving the pits, Bixby Foote spears her in the door and spins her around. Well, Bixby Foote is going to get into his stall one way or another, the presence of other cars be damned. Thankfully, his crew saw the 84 spinning before they jumped over the wall, and the officials wanted to have a good talking to with Bixby Foote. Michael Madrigal leads the race once again after the restart. Ashley Tucker in the 90 is coming under attack from Jim Hayes in the 77 car. Hayes has been on fire in these opening laps. He has clearly not slowed down after his rookie shootout victory, in which he gained 25 bonus points. So if Hayes remains up front at the end of this race, he will be sitting in a very good position leaving this weekend. Hayes is catching Madrigal very quickly. During practice for this race, I saw that the Tom Delgado racing crew was not very concerned about working on that 77 car. They were clearly very confident in their setup after the rookie shootout, and now Hayes is all over the back bumper of the Pi car. Madrigal is taking a very defensive line coming off of turn number 2. Very similar to how he tried to hold off Bixby Foote coming back to one of the previous cautions, but Hayes gets under him coming off of turn 4. Madrigal overdrove that corner a little bit, opening up the door for Hayes. Jason Bates in the 51 car, making his first run for Kurt Walker Motorsports, currently sits in third. And behind this group is Kyle Gaffigan in the 07 car for Team Thunder. He's making his first start for that team. He's currently trying to hold off Robert Nelson, the rookie, in the A9 car. Team Thunder won 3 races last season, 2 with Bill Tissam, and then the Rockford 200 with Dan Richards. And there's trouble coming off of turn 4, as Gregory Alexander in the 55 gets turned around by Benji Flynn in the 36 for Dalitz Performance. Gravity Racing teammates Zach Gott and Rachel Rainsford are collected as well. I believe that this is the 3rd wreck that Rachel Rainsford has been involved in tonight. Jason Bates leads on the restart after the entire field pitted. Jim Hayes is back to 2nd place. Megan Driver is behind him in 3rd, but Megan Driver appears to be no match for Jim Hayes at the moment, but Jason Bates pulls away from the field as Hayes struggles with some of the lapped cars. Hazel May Fratton in the 97, that black car on the inside there, is making life particularly difficult for Hayes at the moment. Lucy Barnton, after a promising start to this race, currently sits 23rd. One lap down, and she just hooked Scott Dalitz and swept across the front bumper of Bixby Foot in the 14, putting Michael Madrigal into the wall after Madrigal had a fantastic start to this race. And there's even more trouble up ahead. At the exit of turn 4, Herbie Finkelberg takes to the apron to avoid this accident, but then he gets tagged by Libby Bell, put onto his roof, and he slams into the wall roof first. That was Ryan Matthews in the 116 who hit Finkelberg and put him onto his roof. Fortunately, he was okay. Now here are pit stops under caution. Jason Bates tags Bixby Foot as Foot is trying to pull into his pit stall. Bates stalls the car as he is pinned against the wall by the 14. And then Ashley Tucker, right behind him, tags Michael Madrigal as Madrigal tries to pull into his stall. So both Jason Bates and Ashley Tucker are pinned against the pit wall. They have stalled their cars, and they would both fall off the lead lap trying to get themselves refired. Bates, Tucker, and both their crew chiefs were ordered to meet with race control for what was deemed an unsafe pit release. In the meantime, Laura Cyrus leads on the restart in her first race for racers with disabilities. This is the 4th team that Cyrus has driven for in the Elite Series since 2009. This isn't a totally unfamiliar environment for Cyrus, though. Lisa Marley, who owns Motor Assault Racing, is also the listed owner of this 42 car. Cyrus finished 4th in points for Lisa Marley at Motor Assault Racing last year. Cyrus suffers from a rather severe case of autism. That's mainly how she got the right at racers with disabilities, but if she hadn't, I feel that she would have landed somewhere else, because she's been very fast in anything she's stepped into. It's only lap 34, and we've already had our 6th caution of the night, as Ramsey Cockiner tags the back of the 859 of Nick Howard coming off at turn 4 and sets off a small pileup. Michael Madrigal in the pie car has severe damage on his front end. Zach Gott in the 7 gets tagged by the 859 and squeezed into the infield wall. He spins back up onto the track right in front of Michael Madrigal. Zach Gott and Michael Madrigal would both go out of the race. Now just ahead of this, Jason Bates puts Scott Dalitz into the wall, and Dalitz comes flying back up into Libby Bell in the 24. This would take Bell out of the race as well. Dalitz's teammate Benji Flynn leads on the restart. That is Gregory Alexander in the 55 in 2nd place. In 3rd is Alex Carson, taking over the iconic number 2 Smash Beer car. Andy Pearson hung up the helmet at the end of last season after having the most successful career of anyone in the ARLA Elite Series, 4 championships and 60 race victories. Carson just took over 2nd from the 55, but he would immediately be challenged by Robert Leckliter in the 110. But he's got a bit of work to do to get by the lapped cars of Jason Bates and Ashley Tucker, as Benji Flynn has already opened up quite a gap on the rest of the field. And the caution comes out again on lap 42, as Robert Nelson pushes up just a little bit, coming off in turn 4 into Hazel May Fratton. Gregory Alexander goes into the wall as Bixby Foot in the 14 clips the A9. Nelson finished 2nd to Jim Hayes in the rookie shootout. He was decently fast in that race, but tonight his priorities clearly lie in adding to the already high caution count. Now as the field is lining up under caution, Laura Cyrus slows way down on the front stretch. I'm not sure if she thinks she has to let someone by, but this causes a huge stack-up and a collision among several cars. Megan driver Rachel Rainsford, Power Steering Incorporated teammates Bixby Foot, and series champion Rip Tyler. You saw Nick Howard in the 859 dive out of there. Good call on his part. Now here's Rip Tyler, who didn't get slowed down enough to avoid slamming into the back of his teammate. Ike Durbin and Ramsey Cockiner come flying in there, and Tom Brayton barrels into the back of the 31 for good measure. Rip Tyler, the defending series champion, got the worst of the stack-up, and he would have to drop out. I really want to know what was going through Cyrus's head when she decided to come to a stop on the front stretch, but at the same time, there was really no reason for everyone else to pile into her. Kyle Gaffigan in the 07 led on the restart, but then we got another caution immediately afterwards as Ashley Tucker and Robert Nelson get together and put Robert Leckliter in the wall. And there were a couple other cars that just came flying in, Gregory Alexander and Megan Driver. Here is Alex Carson in the 2, who just got stuffed into the wall by Nelson and Tucker. There's Robert Lucklider backing into the wall, and Gregory Alexander comes filing in and flies into the path of Megan Driver. Bigsby Foot in the 14, the last remaining PSI car, got a big chunk of this wreck, and he would have to drop out. Kyle Gaffigan continues to lead on the restart, as you saw Ramsey Cockiner in the 31 blow his engine and retire to the pit lane. Coming down the backstretch, Jim Hayes and Benji Flynn, the 77 and 36, duel for the lead among a pack of lapped cars, Jason Bates, Nick Howard, and Ike Durbin in the 86X. And Jim Hayes dives to the low side and takes the lead away from Kyle Gaffigan. Of course, Hayes is driving for Tom Delgado Racing, the team that Gaffigan used to drive for, and now Gaffigan in the 07 for Team Thunder is coming under attack from Benji Flynn in the 36. Flynn's teammate Scott Dollitz in the 18 is running a lap down, and he almost gets put into the wall by Ashley Tucker coming off at turn number 2. And Dollitz slides up into the 90, giving her a piece of his mind, and now Lucy Barnton on the same lap puts Dollitz into the wall off at turn 4, and he comes flying back up onto the track and almost takes out Barnton and Robert Nelson. So clearly Scott Dollitz is not tolerating anyone's shenanigans tonight. Jim Hayes has put a gap on the field. Benji Flynn in the 36 still in second place. Hayes is stuck behind the 51 of Jason Bates, who's trying to fight his way back onto the lead lap. Bates is making his first start for Kurt Walker Motorsports, and he is currently running up inside the top 10 despite being a lap down. We have very few cars on the lead lap at this point in the race. Benji Flynn still in second place. He's got the 859 duck roll car of Nick Howard in front of him. Ashley Tucker almost took out Kyle Gaffigan in the 07. Gaffigan is in third. Tucker is 2 laps down. So Tucker still being very aggressive with the 07, despite not even racing him for position. And now Tucker is coming to terrorize Nick Howard in the 859. Tucker is making her first start in the 90 car for Bjorn Green Racing. That is the number that Bjorn Green himself was successful with in the late 70s and early 80s. Tucker's got a fast car under her, but she's not really doing that number any justice if she's going to rough up people like that. And now Benji Flynn on lap 73 has blown his engine from the second position. This was shaping up to be a great night for Flynn. He has never really had a decent shot at winning a race ever since he was disqualified from the Buffalo Downs race in 2010. And in the final laps, there was quite the lull in the action with so few cars left in the race. Jim Hayes, out of turn number 4, cruises to a dominating victory. And Tom Delgado Racing has made a, well, mockery, for lack of a better term, out of everyone else in this first race weekend, taking the rookie shootout and both rounds of the Smash Beer 200. Kyle Gaffigan inherited second from Benji Flynn. Laura Cyrus rounded out the podium, despite that controversial stop on the front stretch under caution. Robert Lucklider finished 4th, faring better than his brother, who finished 12th in the first round. Ike Durbin grabs the High Climber Award. He finished 8th after starting in 28th. Scott Dollitz in 13th place, 3 laps down, was the last car to finish the race. This was quite the attrition-filled event. Right, but thankfully the last half of this race went caution-free, although we did have a couple close calls, with Scott Dollitz deciding to fly back up into Lucy Barnton, and Ashley Tucker trying to wreck half of her fellow lapped cars. You see Kevin Monroe in 30th. He blew his engine in the opening laps, although he did get the 5 bonus points for winning the pole. Hopefully, this race won't be an indication of further engine woes for M&J Racing. And now here are the point standings leaving the Smash Beer 200. Jim Hayes, thanks to his rookie shootout victory, holds a 20-point lead over his teammate Joseph Howard. The first tie we have in the standings is for 7th between Robert Lucklider and the 422 Green Racing car. There are going to be several ties on this chart because, of course, it is the first race of the season. Rachel Rainsford, despite being involved in about 3 accidents tonight, leaves in the top 15 in points. Ashley Tucker, sitting there in 20th, could potentially face a penalty after her unnecessary aggression tonight. Benji Flynn and Bobby Porteau are tied for 27th place. It should be worth noting that Bobby Porteau finished his race, while Benji Flynn did not. Power Steering Incorporated, after their 3 drivers had a combined total of 8 wins in 2012, find themselves in a big hole after this first race. In fact, Bigsby Foot is the only one of the PSI drivers who is currently in the top 40.